What's up? Welcome to Updates with Mr. Warford, my world history people. If you're watching at home, we've started a new unit, Unit 4, the Age of what's called Absolutism. And if my computer would work, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So, which of the following statements would you most agree with? A government leader should never have absolute authority. A government leader should exercise absolute authority if it will help advance the economy. A government leader should exercise absolute authority when a country is under attack, or a government leader should exercise absolute authority whenever it will advance a country's interests. And this is a question that has been asked throughout world history of leaders of empires, countries, governments, what have you. And what we're going to run into is that in a certain era of world history, most historians put it between about 1550 to 1800. Some move it even further along the line past the 1800s. But what we're going to see in this approximate era is what's called the Age of Absolutism in Europe, okay? A lot of European rulers, kings, queens, czars, emperors, whatever their title was, they're going to try to exert control over all parts of life in the land they rule. And they think that it is based on something called the divine right or divine rights. And that means that God appoints all rulers and that their authority and power should not be questioned because they were appointed by God to rule whatever area of Europe they are in. And we're going to talk about different places that practiced absolutism and believed in divine right. So Unit 4 at a glance, we're going to take about 2.5 weeks and we're going to look at 4 different places: Spain, France, England, and Russia. And we're going to look at how did they utilize absolute rule, how did it work out for them, and what historical consequences were there, good and bad, from the Age of Absolutism. The first place we're going to look at, the first empire we're going to look at, is Spain. And we already kind of started talking about them in our previous unit, Age of Exploration. So we want to look at how Spanish power increased under Charles V and Philip II, explain how the arts flourished during Spain's golden age, and then discuss how they ended up declining in the 1600s. So by the 1500s, Spain emerged as the first modern European power. Under Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, Spain established religious unity. Remember when we talked about the Reformation, fights between Catholics and Protestants? There were also other religious groups in Spain at this time, such as Muslims and Jewish groups, and they were all at odds with each other. Under Isabella and Ferdinand, they create this Catholic majority. And because, remember in Unit 3, we talked about exploration, they were financing the voyages of people like Christopher Columbus across the Atlantic, which led them to get a lot of money from Spanish conquest. So their economy is doing great as well. Charles V takes over in the early 1500s, and we talked about him during the Reformation unit, remember? So he takes over, and he kind of lucked out here because he became the heir to the Spanish Empire, as well as the heir of an influential royal family called the Habsburgs. The Habsburgs, you'll see it in different places spelled different ways. So he ends up getting control over Spain and its colonies, parts of Italy, Austria, the Netherlands, and what was known then as the Holy Roman Empire, which we talked about in the Reformation unit around modern-day Germany. So if you look here in the green, that's a lot of empire. That's a lot for one man to control, because remember, he was an absolute ruler. So it proves too much to handle for one man, Charles V. Okay, so he is, as we talked about in the Reformation unit, he's fighting against the Protestants because he's a devout Catholic. So there's religious wars going on in the Holy Roman Empire, in the German states of the Holy Roman Empire. And after many years of trying to put down the Protestant Reformation, Charles V ends up having to sign the Peace of Augsburg, which we talked about in Unit 2, the Reformation unit, and the German states get to pick whether they are Protestant or Catholic. He's also at war with the Ottoman Empire at this time, and it just proves too much to handle, because if we look back here, this is a lot of land to control and a lot of decisions to make, a lot of money to spend on wars and things like that. So the land proves too much, too scattered, too diverse for one person to rule on their own. So he ends up saying, y'all, I'm out. 1556, he gets kind of sick and pretty much just over it, and retires and moves into a monastery. A monastery is where like monks and nuns live to learn more about God and devote their lives to God. So he's one of the most powerful people in the world, steps down in his late 50s as he gets kind of ill and hangs out in this monastery. This is the place that he ends up living in Spain for the remaining few years of his life. So the task of ruling two scattered empires proves impossible to do for Charles V, gives up the crown at its height, and divides it up between his brother and his son. So Charles V is going to give Spain the Netherlands and the overseas empires of Spain and the New World to his son Philip, who becomes known as Philip II. So Philip II, like his dad, very hardworking, very devout Catholic, very ambitious. He doesn't trust a lot of people. One of the people that was around him often wrote of him, his smile and his dagger are very close. So sounds like he was ready to pop off at any moment if somebody tried him, right? So he reigns for 42 years in the Spanish Empire. He sought to expand Spanish influence, strengthen the Catholic Church, make his own power absolute. Remember, we're talking about absolutism, absolute power. Thanks in part to silver and other goods that are coming in from the Americas, he made Spain super powerful in Europe during his reign. He takes over the Portuguese Empire in 1580, got access to their colonies in Africa and Asia. Spain is rolling in it, y'all. He's also, one of the things you really need to know for your test, he is such a devout Catholic that he gets Spain in multiple wars to further his religious influence. So he was a supporter of the Spanish Inquisition, which was a time where in Spain and other parts of Europe, people were questioning, torturing, executing heretics for going against the Catholic Church. If you look up here at this picture, we've got seems like a good time, getting put on a wheel and your skin and body and muscles stretched apart, getting hung by shackles up on the ceiling, being your head cut off, lit on fire, burned at the stake. So he was a supporter of that. He was such a devout Catholic. Fought many wars to advance Catholic power. Spain and Italy actually took a fleet of ships to the Mediterranean to fight the Ottoman Empire, who were majority Muslim, and won a battle there called the Battle of Lepanto, and Christians hailed Philip II for sticking it to the Ottoman Empire. Then they attempt to have an inquisition in the Netherlands, and the people of the Netherlands, the Dutch, actually rebel against Spain and say, we're mostly Protestants, we're not going to take this, we're not going to die just because we're Protestants. They rebel and declare independence from Spain, and Philip II goes to war with the Netherlands and those rebels in the Netherlands, the Dutch. So he's fighting a war there. Then, come to find out, England is helping back the Dutch the Dutch rebellion that's going on in the Netherlands. So they send a fleet of ships to England to try to attack England and Elizabeth I, who is the Queen of England at this time. So there's a lot of different wars that Philip II and battles that Philip II has to fight because of his strong beliefs in Catholicism. And they end up getting defeated by the English Empire when they try to overtake England, and their armada or group of ships goes to England. They are defeated, and that ends up becoming the first tipping point when we start to see a decline in Spanish rule. So what we're going to see in the next few days is we're going to cover Spain's golden age. So what did it look like when they were at their peak? And then we're also going to start to look at their decline. What was it about their empire that eventually brought them down into less prominence during the Age of Absolutism. Thanks for listening. Check Google Classroom for the assignment I posted. Have a great day.